and answered the question that I posed to the entire panel. But first, let me tell you a little bit about me, and then I will turn it over to our panelists to go from there. I was employed by Miami-Dade County for 37 years in the Miami-Dade Parks and Recreation and Open Spaces Department until I retired. I served as the Chief of Contract Management and Procurement Division, and I'm also a practicing attorney in the state of Florida. I've been a member of the ASPA South Florida chapter for the past 40 years. When I did my master's at the University of Miami, this was a requirement, a professional affiliation. And I've got my Zoom cat has decided to come in to say hi. So she's here. Go that way. There. So what I'd like the panel to do is you'll give it about a 30-second intro because we've got a lot to cover, and we'll do the recorded message from Levine Cava first. And then you'll have about 8 minutes or so, give or take. You can do a little more to discuss your city's initiatives in leadership. And please include the following. This is the question that I posed to the panel previously.
Miami-Dade County has a long track record of exceptional public service in dealing with crises. We developed the expertise through generations of experience in preparing for and recovering from hurricanes. And we've expanded this goal of service before self to all areas of government. Since March of last year, COVID-19 has challenged us to take our abilities for handling emergencies to a whole new level. Instead of sprinting, as we used to do in order to deal with extreme weather events, we have now had to learn to treat this current crisis as a long-term marathon. The health, economic, and social impacts of this pandemic continue to test us for our endurance, our resilience, our resourcefulness, and even our character. But our previous successes in public service management have proven that we can and we will meet this moment head on. We can even use this crisis as a unique opportunity to rebuild by championing what I call the 4 E's: equity, our economy, our environment, and renewed engagement with the residents we serve. And while this afternoon's discussion is about managing public services during crises, I want us to remember to broaden our understanding beyond short-term shocks like hurricanes and the longer-term threats like COVID-19. We have to deal with all these immediate challenges while also focusing our attention on more wide-ranging stressors that will impact us for years into the future. 2 of the most dramatic long-term stressors ahead for our county are social inequities and rising sea level. Very quickly, in my new term as mayor, I created several administrative positions to help ensure that everyone in Miami-Dade County has the additional public service assistance that they will need to confront these multiple crises, with a focus on both COVID-19 and our environmental and social challenges. These new first ever leadership roles include a chief medical officer, a chief bay officer, a chief community services officer, a chief operating officer, and 2 senior advisors, 1 for innovation and performance and 1 for policy and planning. These new leaders will help ensure that every part of our wonderfully diverse community thrives as we work together to provide public services that dismantle barriers to opportunity and take on challenges caused by social injustices so that we can build a Miami-Dade County that is truly reflective of the residents it serves. In closing, I want to emphasize that equity in public services is not just about a finite list of initiatives. It is instead a sustained approach to governance. It must be a team effort, and it must include a bottoms-up approach that invests in people and businesses in order to help us build back better than ever before. This will ensure that Miami-Dade County truly can adapt and that our community will thrive for decades into the future. I want to invite everyone listening today to share their thoughts on what our community priorities should be. Make your voice heard loud and clear by taking our short survey at thrive305.org. It only takes a few minutes, and we want to hear from everyone before February 26th. Thank you. God bless you. Have a great day.
Okay, so Bill is trying to get back on. So in the interim, why don't we continue with Mayor Cunningham?
There, so I missed the question. He logged off right when he was giving us this all important question, but I'll go ahead and just introduce myself as what I heard that we were going to do for the first 30 seconds. So my name is Karen Cunningham. I am currently the mayor of the Village of Palmetto Bay. Village of Palmetto Bay is just north of Cutler Bay, and I see we have my colleague BJ, Councilmember Duncan here as well, and just south of Pinecrest. So we are 8 square miles, almost as far south in Miami-Dade as you can go. I'm sorry, Bill, are you?
I'm on my phone. We have no power in the entire area. Sorry about that.
No, no
if,
problem.
If you'd like, I'll read the question again. It was, please discuss your leadership techniques that you have employed in a time of COVID, tenant evictions, homelessness, and other issues impacting the human factor in your communities.
Okay, well, I was just giving a brief introduction of myself, but do you want me to take the 8 minutes now, or?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I'll just kind of run through some stuff then. Awesome. So I want to give a little bit about my background, because I think I'm really an example that anybody who has a passion for service can be an elected official. It requires a little elbow grease, a little bit of hard work, but I am a first grade teacher, served as a first grade teacher, teaching here with Miami-Dade County Public Schools for about 18 years. And then was tapped by United Teachers of Dade for 1 year of service. That's a teachers union, for those of you that are not familiar. So I was supposed to go for 1 year of service, and 1 year of service with them ended up, I think I'm 16 and a half years of service now with them. And I'm concluding, because this is my last year, I will be retired from Miami-Dade County Public Schools in June. So I'm super excited about that. And I'll be able to return to being a full-time mayor. I've served on council for 6 years, six plus 6.5 years, 4 as councilwoman. And then in 2018, and I do want to throw this in, because I know we have a lot of young people tuning in. When I'm telling my story, I often tell young people, children, usually in school, that I ran for council for vice mayor in 2012. And I talk about election day and what do you think happened? And they all say, you won. And I said, no, I lost. So I began this journey in 2012. And that year, right after I lost my first election, we did well, but losing, there's a lot of benefits to giving something a try and not being successful, because I learned so much about Palmetto Bay, about local government, and about the things that were important to the residents here. So stepped in 2014 as councilwoman, and then in 2018, I ran against the incumbent mayor. I just didn't really feel like I was able to accomplish as much as I would have liked to as a councilwoman. And I am of the mindset that if you're going to do something, you need to be successful at it, and also be able to accomplish something while you're doing it. So I said, I'll give this a shot, and if I don't win for mayor, I'll just resume my other passions. So things look very different, obviously, than last year, when I think it was last year that I participated. It might have been 2 years ago. I don't quite remember. Obviously, little did I know that just a short time after participating with ASPA, we would essentially be helping to write the playbook that Mayor Cava spoke of just a few moments ago for Miami-Dade County and really beyond. Really uncharted territory in everything that we were doing. And I know that everybody online can relate to that, whether it was figuring out how to meet, and we pivoted very quickly. 10 days after the shutdown, we held our first meeting virtually. I won't say it was perfect, but we did hold that meeting and we were able to engage and get public comment. And of course, we've, like so many cities and schools and everything, places of worship, and they've really perfected this over the course of the year, just like we're seeing here today with the summit. So we're currently doing a hybrid form of meeting. So we do meet in person. We have to have at least a quorum, so at least 3 people have to be there so far. Luckily, none of our council has come down with COVID, so we've all been able to participate in person. And then the public can join us either virtually by submitting comments by form and or showing up to Village Hall, and we've got protocol in place for that. So I think some of the biggest challenges and lessons learned from COVID. One, I live in an extremely kind, compassionate, and caring community. I thought I knew that, but I learned a lot about the folks that live here in Palmetto Bay and my surrounding neighborhoods. Folks really stepped up as it relates to lending a helping hand. And I know sometimes people look down south here at communities like Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, and Cutler Bay and say, what need is there? Those are communities with middle class or upper middle class. What help could they possibly need? In Palmetto Bay, we have a large population of senior citizens. Obviously, the first reaction, at least for me and probably like so many of you, was fear, right? Like, oh my goodness, this is a pandemic. We don't know much about it. People are dying. This is very scary. And I know I'm breaking it down in very simple terms, but that's how I think a lot of people felt. They were scared. And so we saw a lot of families, especially older adults in our community, that were frightened. They didn't even want to go to the grocery store. Maybe not because they didn't have the means to go, but they were afraid to go. Or they couldn't stand in long lines and wait. So even before the county, and I think the county has done a remarkable job. I know there's always folks pointing fingers this way and that way and the other way at who's at fault or who didn't step up or who didn't do that. But let me tell you, when you don't quite know what the right tact is and you're sailing that boat anyway, you got to give folks a lot of applause for that. So even before the county could get into place, getting information and getting meals to seniors, we were doing that here in the village of Palmetto Bay. One of the biggest lessons I think that we've learned, just as it relates to government, is for us, we did not have a lot of our services online, and to date, Village Hall is still closed. So closed to the public. There's the employees are in there. They're doing their work. They're meeting with public by appointment until we can get more individuals vaccinated. I think that's probably, at least that's the way we've decided to go. But there were things that people were looking to do. For example, folks were home. So since they were home, they could get the outside of their house painted or their roof put on with minimal contact with folks. We did not have capacity for moving forward with building applications, which we took a little break from initially, but we're plugging a lot of that in now. I think we've made that a very high priority and necessary, even without the pandemic, for busy folks, and in this case, folks that don't want to make contact, to be able to do things online. I think one of the benefits, well, there are so many benefits, I think. I know people have gone through some hard times, but I'm really proud of the collaboration and the coalition that's been built in the South Dade area with I'm sure our councils as well, but with the South Dade mayors. We really used that opportunity, and that kind of spread. Miami-Dade League of Cities picked up a meeting with all elected officials and with their mayors group so that we could kind of bounce things off of each other. And so that coupled with Zoom, it's really allowed us to be able to collaborate more. Now, that doesn't mean we're always going to agree on things. And Palmetto Bay right now, we do have issues that we don't agree with Cutler Bay on, but we're able to, I think, kind of pop those into a little bit of a silo and still be able to work together on bigger picture items for the South Dade region as it relates to transit, sustainability efforts, community ratings for sustainability and flood, and all of the issues that are facing the South Dade area. I could go on, but I think I'll kind of turn it over at this point to wherever Bill says to go. I think I'm most interested, at least for me, is hearing questions, because I have pages of things I could cite are happening in the village of Palmetto Bay. I will say that one of the things that I think we can probably say we're one of the few cities that had to deal with this particular issue. We were making a change in administration. For those of you that aren't aware, most city governments, not all, but most, are council manager forms of government. So they're part of their charter. They have 3 charter officers. It's your village attorney, your village clerk, and then your village manager. And the village manager actually serves kind of like the CEO. If you wanted to consider the city a business, he's like the CEO, the executive director of the business. And we did 2 searches during the pandemic, and I think we did a really good job. So we have a brand new village manager that at some point, Bill, in your future summits, I think it'd be great to reach out to manager Nick Morano. He's coming to us from Carson City, Nevada.
Wow.
So he's had to really acclimate to a new community, not knowing all the players. And I think some people thought there would be a great challenge in that, and I think there is. But I think there's great benefit in that too, because you're able to really come at stuff with a fresh slate, and fresh perspective. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, because those of you that are tuned in, elected officials can talk for a really long time and say absolutely nothing. So I don't want to get to that point, but I'm looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Because I'm on my phone, I don't know. I only see you.
Yep,
Okay.
we hear you. Yep.
The next panelist will be Monica Sapero, the Deputy Administrator from Broward County. And then it'll go from there to Councilman Duncan, and then to General Counsel for the City of Miami, Jeremy Schwartz. We'll do it in that order. Okay, so Ms. Sapero.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Mayor Cunningham, and it was nice to hear that background. So we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, and Councilmember Duncan, nice to meet you unofficially as well. So my name is Monica Sapero. I am the Deputy County Administrator for Broward County. I've been here over 12 and a half years in county administration. We have a very unique form of government, and the size and complexity, excuse me, of our government, being the 2nd largest county in the state. And we're about we're larger than I think it's 15 different states in the country. So we have about 70 lines of business, ranging everything from airport and seaport, and our Convention and Visitors Bureau, our transit system, water, wastewater, and all the like. We have about 2 million people in the county, 31 municipalities. Bill, you asked to talk about a little bit about our leadership techniques and styles. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am, and what's made me the type of leader that I am, or in my role, I should say. I started as an entry-level budget analyst many years ago, right out of grad school. I immediately became a member of ASPA, and some of the other organizations like Florida City County Managers Association and ICMA as well, because I always had an affinity and a tendency to want to be involved in local government and close to the people where you see the most impact. You know, I learned a lot from a lot of great individuals. Dan Clayman, the city manager of Tallahassee, former city manager of Tallahassee for 20 plus years, and Bertha Henry, the longest serving county administrator in Broward County here. And I've had some great mentors, and I enjoy giving back in that regard as well, because I've been able to get a lot from folks that have been willing to give them their time to me. I also spent 7 years in state government. I worked for Governor Jeb Bush for 7 years as his environmental policy advisor. Learned a great deal under him as well, and a gracious individual who gave me a great opportunity as well. You know, my style has been very collaborative. I like to empower the people around me, because that's how I flourished and was able to get some opportunities. I think it's important to surround yourself with diversity, not just in, you know, the walks of life and cultural and ethnic diversity, but also diversity of thought to me is just as important, because, you know, we impact a lot of people in our jobs, and not everyone thinks just like us. So we need to know what we don't know, and hear from different walks of life and different thought processes, and on how things and decisions we make impact others. That's I think a good synopsis of who I am and my leadership style, and then I'll touch on a few things you know, that we've learned through COVID, and some things that we've put into place here in Broward. You know, we're coming up on a full year of being under an emergency declaration here in Broward. We have issued 31 emergency orders in the last year. I'll tell you, you know, I liken the experience to flying an airplane while we're building it, because we had no experience in doing any of this stuff. And, you know, we've had, you know, experiences, of course, with hurricanes and unfortunate incidents like, you know, social unrest or mass shootings, or, you know, different natural disasters, but nothing has prepared us, you know, for the totality and the complexities of what we've dealt with COVID. And, you know, through this process, we learn a lot about the people that we surround ourselves with, you know, and people have really shown their true colors. They either rise to the occasion, or they kind of fall flat. And you quickly learn who those folks are, and the determination and really the dedication to public service. And, you know, these are the times when some people didn't want to come to work, or they were afraid. You know, this is what we do. This is our job. We are here for the people, and we are the people that people in the community turn to. So we didn't have an option. And, you know, by and large, our people really rallied and have stepped up. And I'm super proud, just like, you know, Mayor Cunningham said, super proud of our folks. And we feel the same way. We have a tremendous staff, a lot of people with a lot of pride in what we do and how we serve our community. We've implemented, you know, at the beginning of COVID, we started with a real collaborative approach with our 31 municipalities. We continue to have about bi-weekly, you know, at one point where they were weekly, but bi-weekly calls with all of our municipal mayors, just to check in and let them know what we're thinking and things that we may be floating, contemplating for emergency orders, and how that would impact their residents and the business community. So this whole thing has been a tremendous balancing act of how do we protect public health, as well as ensuring the economic health of our community doesn't fail at the same time. So it's been a collaborative effort, and we also coordinated. I will tell you, at one point I was on the phone. We were on the phone 7 days a week with both former mayor of Miami as well, during, you know, prior to Mayor Levine Cava coming on, and also with Palm Beach County administration, and trying to collaborate as a tri-county area, because a lot of our residents live and work and cross the county lines daily. So whatever we did in one county, we knew would have an impact in our neighboring counties. So that was a huge thing that made a big difference. And now with Mayor Levine Cava, we're really excited also to work with her and her administration. And it's been a tremendous experience. So we have implemented a lot of programs here in the county to help the community. We've listened to the folks that, you got to really pay attention to the human factor and show that empathy and be, to show the humanity that, because at the end of the day, people are scared and we want to get the services to them and give them reassurance while being completely transparent and honest of what we're facing and really follow the facts and the science, listen to the experts, the medical experts. And we were able to, with the CARES funding that was sent from the federal government. Now we've had, 2 different batches of that. The first, the larger chunk of money, we were able to do a lot of things, including assisting with testing. Now we're shifting a lot, obviously, to vaccination while still maintaining the testing, because that's really important to have both components. We've implemented some small business grant programs, some rental assistance programs and food assistance. So we've recognized, and some things for our cultural entities and our nonprofits. We recognize that everyone's taken a hit during COVID financially, and as well as, particularly in the nonprofit sector, people's ability to give to those organizations has diminished a bit. And so they still, and now's the greatest time of their need to be able to give back to those individuals that are most in need. So we've implemented a lot of those programs, and we're just trying to do the best we can to make sure we reach the largest segment of the community, both private sector and business sector as well.
Thank you, Monica. And I'd now like to turn to Robert Duncan, Councilman for Cutler Bay. Mr. Duncan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. Thank you to my fellow panelists for the kind words. And it's nice to meet some of you officially, even if this is through a virtual medium. My name is Robert Duncan, but I also go by BJ, have for my entire life. A little bit about me to start off with before I kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what we've done in Cutler Bay as it pertains to the human aspect of dealing with this pandemic. In my spare time, so to speak, I am the director of facilities for the College of Communication, Architecture, and the Arts at Florida International University. I've been here now 8 years or so. It's another aspect of kind of serving the public in a way, because it is a public university, and a lot of what I do in that regard is very similar to what I do on the town council for Cutler Bay. In addition to that, I got involved in the town of Cutler Bay previously by volunteering on the town's education advisory committee. I had always had a desire to kind of give back and to be involved in my community. So when the opportunity presented itself in 2014, I jumped at the chance. I had submitted an application resume and just wanted to be involved as much as I possibly could. I've had a background in education. At one point in time, I was an instructor at Southwood Middle School in Palmetto Bay. So ultimately, I was selected, and I served on that committee for 4 years. The last year and a half or so, I had the honor of chairing that committee. And when we were able to kind of develop, advisory positions to give to the town council as far as where the town's education policy should go or could go. So ultimately, towards the end of my tenure there, I felt this desire to kind of want to do more, to be able to impact more of my community in different ways. And that's when I decided to run for town council in the 2018 election year. And I was elected in 2018, and I've been on the town council for Cutler Bay ever since. So that first year, the first year was more of a typical year. And then going into the second year, we had the COVID-19 pandemic. And that has, that's impacted everybody's lives in any way, shape, or form that we can even imagine. This is an event there that we haven't seen in over 100 years in this country, or globally for that matter. So trying to operate and trying to just exist with all the different issues that arose as a result of the pandemic, especially from a public service standpoint. And I'm sure Mayor Cunningham and all the other members here can agree. It was kind of trial by fire. A lot of us were learning as we were going the best ways to move forward. So we might have thought that, oh, something that traditionally works, how we have meetings, how we contact with our residents and discuss things with them would work the same way. And then you learn very, very quickly, no, there's a lot of steps and things that you need to do in order to kind of change how you operate and how you've operated for as long as you have. So case in point, when the pandemic struck, everything moved virtually. Everything moved out of physically being there. And much like Palmetto Bay, a lot of our services that we offered the town were done in person up to that point. So we had to start focusing on how can we make things easier, a little more accessible to our residents who are weary of leaving their houses or who don't have the ability to leave their house, whether it be they don't have transportation or they don't want to risk their public health, their family's health. So a lot of what we did at the very beginning was just try to figure out how we can continue to operate, how the government can continue to operate in a more efficient way for those current circumstances. One thing that I will say, and I'm sure every municipality kind of has had similar experiences. I always knew that our residents and the people of South Dade were good people. Were hardworking people, blue collar people. But coming together in a time of need, in a time of crisis, was very, very eye-opening and pleasant just to be around just the community kind of coming together. I always go back and relate to how the community kind of came together after Hurricane Andrew in 1992, where regardless of what your situation was, you might have been better off than your neighbor, and you were willing to help your neighbor out, and your neighbor might have been better off than somebody else, and they were willing to help somebody else out. So everybody since the beginning of this pandemic down in our town, and I'm sure in all the other surrounding towns and villages, has really kind of come together. And the human, the human empathy and the human nature of everything has really, really helped to allow us to continue to operate. So some of the things and programs that we've implemented during the pandemic, we had multiple food distribution events, and we partnered with Farm Share. We partnered with the Board of County Commission. We partnered with some of our other elected officials at Tallahassee, and we had several of these drive-through food banks, so to speak, where people would get the information, residents would get the information, anybody that was in need really would get the information. They would line up in their vehicles. In the town of Cutler Bay, we have a dedicated area just off the turnpike, which was perfect. It was an underused old bus pull-off area that had a loop. So we kind of used that area to coordinate this, and we had town police and town staff involved. And we were able on multiple occasions to distribute food, milk, eggs, just items that people needed, people that were, hurting for these items. And we were able to do that multiple times just to give back. And we always had, several elected officials, several volunteers, students, members of the community just wanted to be there and wanted to help their fellow resident and citizen in person in a time of need. So that was, one of the things that we feel very proudly and strongly about doing and partnering and having some of those private public partnerships to kind of look out for our residents and our citizens there and help them. Because with the pandemic, there's more to it than just, the public health aspect of, being afraid of getting sick or dealing with the illness itself. You have a lot of these other auxiliary issues that come into play, whether it's economic issues of people losing their jobs or working from home. Even from a human psychology standpoint, you have people, and I did it myself for the first few months, where after working from home for a while, those walls start to they start to drain you a bit. You know, you miss seeing other people and interacting with people. So being able to provide for the community and get out there and have those initiatives, and we still do. We still, up to this day, are continuing to partner and plan for more of these events. It's very fulfilling, and it serves a need and a purpose throughout that time. Additionally, things that Cutler Bay has done, we were one of 21 municipalities that were awarded grant funding from the Board of County Commissioners to use to provide for both rental and mortgage assistance programs for our residents, as well as childcare assistance programs. And ultimately what that did, with a lot of people dealing with the economic stresses and possibly either not having jobs or not having as much income or what have you, and that's across the board, across the country, globally. But what we did for our residents, and what we attempted to do, was if you had young children that were in a childcare situation and childcare setting that costs money, you had the ability to apply for and receive funding from the town that we received from the county to mitigate some of those costs. The same thing with rental assistance, the same thing with mortgage assistance. If you can demonstrate a need and you lived within the town, then the town was going to be able to provide you with some sort of a financial assistance to kind of make things easier, to just try to do whatever we can to make the day just that much more livable, to make the situation that much less of an issue. So we've done that. Additionally, Cutler Bay has been very environmental, pro-environmentally friendly for as long as we've been incorporated, and especially over the last 2 years that I've been on the town council. A lot of the legislation and the policies that we've passed have been pro-environment. So a few of the items that we had been working on that also kind of play into COVID-19 and our response there is we've been able to open up park areas, including a brand new canoe and kayak launch at one of our parks. Everything's set up, everything's socially distanced, everything is safe, so that some of our residents, and especially some of our younger residents who were used to going to school all the time and being with their friends, and then got relegated to virtual learning or distance learning of some sort, it gives them the ability and the opportunity to get some fresh air in a safe, socially distanced and responsible manner. It allows them to get out on the water, enjoy some of the natural resources that our communities down here in South Florida have. And we've done everything that we can to just try to empathize with our residents and the residents of South Dade, to understand what they're doing, to be there for them. I've had numerous, it feels like I'm always talking to different residents, every day, every week, and just reaching out and asking, what's going on? How are you doing? How are you dealing with this? I reached out at the very beginning, especially to a lot of our senior citizens within Cutler Bay, because we do have a rather large senior community. We have an assisted living community down at East Ridge. So reaching out and just trying to determine what needs exist. Perhaps there's things that some of us in the town government are not aware of or not, paying attention to at that moment. So it's really just about increasing communication and increasing empathy and understanding what people are going through, and then doing everything that we can to mitigate that, and just to try to make life as easy as possible. So with that, thank you very much. I turn it back to Bill.
Believe it or not, the internet just came back. It's amazing, but you learn in leadership how to deal with these types of things. You resort to your phone, and when it comes back on, you switch. So without further ado, General Counsel Jeremy Schwartz, I welcome you. I'm glad you're here, and it is yours.
Thank you so much, and I do apologize. This is my first virtual and public appearance in this capacity, speaking to a group such as yours. I generally have worked as a civil servant behind the scenes, so this is fairly new to me. To quote former Senator Bob Graham, I'm not Florida born, but I am Florida grown. I came to Florida with the United States Navy when I was much younger, and was fortunate enough to become a Floridian. And when I finished my active duty, I worked a bit and was able to use my GI Bill to pursue a JD PhD, which in turn brought me back to Florida and into the practice of law, both in Jacksonville and in Miami, and had the pleasure about over 2.5 years ago to be asked by Mayor Francis Suarez to serve as his chief of staff, which I've done for the past 2 years. And as of January, have laterally shifted over to be his senior advisor and general counsel, which in practical terms means I get my weekends back. But in very real terms, I'm doing a lot of the same work that we've been doing for the past 2 years and the past year. I'm going to keep my remarks fairly structured and straightforward so that other members of the panel and can discuss these issues and the audience can engage. Our approach has been very much the same approach the mayor has reiterated recently with regards to technology and opportunity. Our approach during COVID-19 was simple. How can I help? We have constantly asked ourselves and our residents, how can we help? As Mayor Levine Cava said earlier, we are dealing with something which is fundamentally different from the past issues and emergencies that we've dealt with, but equally impactful to the residents across the county and within the city of Miami especially. As a result, we have been a pioneer in addressing a number of these issues in practical terms. Mayor Suarez laid out a rental assistance plan. We laid out a small business assistance plan. And we've worked with our partners at the county and at the state level to help our residents in very practical, very immediate terms to survive this, to adapt to it, and then to thrive. Because we understand that this is unprecedented, but we also understand that there are opportunities and that our residents, are, as residents, need us to work with them to ensure that they not only survive, but they thrive at the end of this, and that we as a community thrive together. So for the past 1.5 years, we have taken very practical steps. First, as you know, the mayor was one of the first elected officials to get COVID-19. So we use that as an opportunity to educate our residents, to educate the public, to message that so that they could understand what COVID-19 was and what it was not. Then we worked at both the county level and the state level, as was mentioned earlier, to put in place a number of measures that at the time would address some of the immediate issues we were dealing with. That relates to public health, whether it be masks in public. I know the county has used the curfew, and also working with business owners to ensure that they are able to continue to provide goods and services to their residents and employment to their employees well within the requirements of doing it safely. And so we have constantly asked ourselves, how can we best help our residents? How can we do it in a practical way? How can we do it in a sustainable way? And how can we do it in a way that when we reach a different phase, our residents and our residents both within the city of Miami, but also broadly within the county and within the South Florida region can adjust, adapt, and thrive and come out of it stronger. And so at that point, I think at the end of the day, the role of government is to address those things that people cannot do on their own, but also to give them the tools to be able to adapt and to thrive in such a challenging situation. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. We do have a couple minutes for questions. Sorry it took longer for me to get back to everything, but it's to the whole panel. How have you, as individual leaders, kept yourselves energized, motivated to do this important work, and your teams? And it's open to any of you.
Coffee.
Fortunately,
Fortunately, we have some of the best cafecito in America, so.
Yay.
I missed that. I missed my cafe. I was going to say, I think the human aspect of it has really, all of us as public servants in our heart, I think the humanity of things really keeps us motivated and I think has really um, done great motivation, giving great motivation for our staff because they see how grateful folks are and how you're really helping people with the programs that you're putting in place and what you're doing. Everything as far what ranging from enforcement efforts so that you can keep the businesses in check that should, be operating their businesses properly to, so that they can stay open, right? And so we can keep the business sectors open to like the food distribution that Councilman Duncan was talking about, the things like that, that has really been strong motivation for our folks, and most of them have that public service sense. One of the examples I'll use very quickly is, when we had the situation that was very nationally publicized with two cruise ships, the Rotterdam and the Zandam, and nobody wanted those ships, in port, and those were very long nights on the phone, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, all night, every day, until we were able to get those ships safely into Port Everglades. And that's something that we were very proud of. And that was a big Herculean effort, but it was all back to the humanity of it and helping those people that were stuck out there and doing it in a safe manner. So I really think that's been a huge motivation for my team, my leadership team, and as well as the lower level employees, is being able to see how we help people.
I would say I'm just going to piggyback because I started my introduction with I always thought I knew what a kind, caring, compassionate community we had. I didn't know until I know just how kind, caring, and compassionate they were. So, I think when you're in a service role, it's likely, at least in my case, and I'm sure in my colleagues' case, it's because you want to be finding ways to help. We have several places of worship in the community that stepped up, looking for direction on how they can assist. And I think it just kind of coalesced. During all of this, as I mentioned, we also hired a new village manager, and sometimes these fresh faces help you to see things in a different way. And I have 2 new colleagues serving on council. That would be maybe what, 5th inning, 6th inning of the pandemic. So they were elected in November and December, respectively. And it was funny the other night at our meeting. Of course, I, having been there for 6 years, and then a couple of other colleagues, having served for about the same length of time. One of the newer colleagues, Vice Mayor Leanne Tellum, said, it's interesting hearing your perspective. I'm only hearing of all of the great things that we're doing. The community loves our interaction, and they love that we're working on things in a new way together. And I thought, wow, okay, could you forward those emails to me, please? But it was really just, it kind of highlights exactly what you're talking about, because I think just the freshness in the village of Palmetto Bay, even though, there's always some spin out there. Politics is politics. If you focus on what you're doing right and listening to the community, they'll guide you. They'll keep you buoyed. They'll lift you up while you're helping lift them up.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If I can, I'll quickly piggyback off of Mayor
I want
Cunningham.
to say something in closing before we've only got like 4 minutes, so go for
Okay,
it.
I will be very efficient. Ultimately, yes, it's a matter of, I think, leading by doing. I think by being out there in front of people, in front of the community, the rest of the staffs of the town hall and the various municipalities that we live in, the residents, that energizes us. That energizes me, and much like what Mayor Cunningham said, in order to be a public servant and to want to, constantly make change and do things and improve your community, that in and of itself was very energizing and energetic for me to want to continue during this pandemic.
Well, I looked up the academic side of me, leadership skills, the human side of leadership. And you've all mentioned pretty much everything that I'm going to say. So it's kind of a good way to bring it together. You employ active listening, you're empathetic, you have strategic thinking skills, creativity, the ability to inspire and convince others, and flexibility. Now, in the day of COVID, or the year of COVID, and everything else that's been going on, that sort of, to me, summed it up in everything I heard you say. And all of you have done a wonderful job. And I like the idea that the mayors are getting together and people are talking and trying to work this out as a group instead of each side factioning it out. So that to me is very important. And I've lived here my whole life, so it's nice to see. Jeremy, I'm sorry, we got a couple minutes. If you would like to say something, I just wanted to get that in there.
No, I mean, I want to echo all of your comments. I mean, the past year has been the proverbial Apollo 13 moment for public administration in the United States, especially in the state of Florida. As was referenced earlier, we survived Hurricane Andrew. We survived Hurricane Dorian. We have some of the most resilient people in the world living here. We are innovating actively with the Miami Forever Bond, which seeks to integrate climate adaptive building practices into how we invest and how we build the future of our cities. And we have people who have come from all over the world and all over the United States who are resilient, who are tough, and who are generous and kind and compassionate. And I think that what Mayor Cunningham said and Councilman Duncan said is so true. People are our greatest resource. And when you focus on people as your greatest resource, you are able to do things and you're able to adapt and thrive in situations that many other systems and other organizations cannot.
Well, that gives us exactly 20 seconds to thank the panel. I really appreciate the fact you guys came together and did this. It's a really our first stab at a full-blown all-day virtual experience. And we've got a lot of attendees out there from all around, maybe even the country. I don't know. So I think it's wonderful. And I'd very much like to thank you again. And we'll do this again next year, hopefully in person. That would be special.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you all. That was a very enlightening panel. I know I enjoyed it, so I think everybody else did. And thanks for coming up. We're going to have a short break. And then the next panel will be the Unsung Heroes of Public Service. So thank you all. Good to see you, Monica.
Likewise, Rosalind, I was on mute. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye. Quick break, and then we'll be back at 2 o'clock.